Hello fellow book nerds, let's talk about that character progression. So in today's video I'm gonna be recommending you character-driven books. Also, my name is Gabby, I feel like I forgot that somewhere. If you don't know, I made a video called atmosphere-driven/atmospheric books, and I said I want to do more of those and like do lists of books, you know, driven by things. In this atmosphere-driven, atmospheric books, I talked about books with amazing atmosphere that just transports you, and makes you feel like you're there with the characters, the world's so just rich, vivid. I said I might do a character one, character-driven books, and you guys seem to really like it in the comments. There was a lot of, "Ooh, I can't wait for the character one." And I struggled so much. It was hard because, I don't know, I feel like with atmosphere, that's something I just noticed right away, right? If the book just can transform me absolutely into the world, I will notice it. But with characters, like every book has characters, and some books have very good characters, but I don't know if they would be classified as a character-driven book because that's like a very specific thing. So I was like really confused, not knowing what to choose. So I Googled it, yes. Like a good person, I Googled it. And here what it said about character-driven books. A character-driven story is focused on studying the characters that make up the story. Character-driven stories can deal with inner transformation or the relationship between the characters. Whereas plot-driven stories focus on a set of choices that a character must make, a character-driven story focuses on how the character arrives at a particular choice. When you zoom into the internal conflict, you tend to focus less on the external conflicts. The plot in a character-driven story is usually simple and often hyper-focused on the internal or interpersonal struggle of the characters. In a character-driven story, the plot is used to develop the characters. So with this in mind, this is kind of like how I compiled my list. I asked myself, is it about the plot or is it about the character? So I feel like most of the time these will be books that not much happens, that kind of book where you're just like, where the plot at though? That's probably true of some of these, and although I actually sometimes really love books like this, I don't feel like fantasy necessarily lends itself to it. I feel like a lot of contemporaries or literary fiction, those are very much like, the character, ooh, let's hang out, but nothing happens, you know what I mean? But then fantasy, usually something happens. Like fantasy, it's important, and that's mostly what I read. And the second book genre I read is thriller. Something happens in thrillers. It's usually never about the characters because you don't care about the character. They're literally a pawn to move along the story. So if these don't fall into like the character-driven category officially or whatever, just like ignore it. This is just my gut feeling telling me this is what it is, okay? Okay, so first up we have Circe by Madeline Miller. So I love this book. I don't know where it is. I think it's up in the attic. But in this book it's a Greek myth retelling. So we follow Circe, who you might know from the Odysseus, I think, myth. Was it Odysseus? You know, the one that traveled a lot and got lost like a bunch of times and then he came back. Yeah, Odyssey. Yeah, from the Odyssey. So she's a character there and she's one of the witches who like entraps him or whatever. But this is just a story from her perspective and she's a goddess and it's her story. But like, it's really this slow digestion of her character, seeing what makes her tick, what took her to the place that she is right now, what made her make those choices. It's like a study of immortality, of loneliness. I just loved it. It was really not about the plot because the plot wasn't like complicated or anything, and you kind of know it from the Odyssey, like you know where you're going anyway, but it was all about the character and how she handled things thrown her way, how other people treated her. So she came from being this gentle creature to not a gentle creature, you know what I mean? So it's like a whole study of her character, and I love this book anyway, but it was like a really, really good character-driven story. Really slow, so if you're not into that, but it's definitely about the character in this one. Next up we have two books from the same author. One I love, one is alright. So we'll see, I don't know. I thought it would still be valuable for you. Maybe you haven't heard, but probably heard of both of these. These are Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six, both by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So let's start with Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So in this one, it's a historical fiction. We follow this fictional, like, Hollywood starlet, fick like Marilyn Monroe, and she was like really famous back in the day, but she's not really been heard from that much, and she really keeps to herself, doesn't want anyone telling her story or whatever. And one day she reaches out to this journalist, that's the main character, and says that she is willing to do like an expose or like a tell-all on her life. Such a beautiful story. I love it so much. It just transported me to that 50s or whatever era this was. It was so beautiful. Such a character study. It was also about sexuality. A special thing about Evelyn Hugo is she has 7 husbands, so we find out why she has had 7 husbands, and it was just wonderful, beautiful. I think it was just such a discussion about fame, about what it means to be remembered, and what is important in the end, and that really resonated with me, and I loved it so much. 5 stars. Absolutely love this book, and it was definitely about the character of Evelyn Hugo, but we also kind of explore the character of the journalist and her journey, because of course they're entwined in some way. So it was a really good entry. Really loved it. And the second book, the Daisy Jones and the Six, I think that's set more like 60s, 80s or something. It's also historical fiction, and we follow a fictional band called Daisy Jones and the Six, and it's kind of like a remembrance of them. So band members are looking back on their journey as a band and like why they broke up, and it's all told in the form of interviews. And I did love this book, and I think that's because I read it physically, but it's really meant to be listened to. I feel like that would have way more of an impact. And I didn't like the characters, so you might be like, why is this on this list? But even though I didn't like the characters, I understand what it was trying to do, and I understand that the characters' progression journey and all of that was the main point. Like, there was very little plot, like there was literally just them talking, but you really see how it changed throughout the years, the relationship between them, all of that. It was like a really cool thing to see. So if you'd enjoy it, like a lot of people enjoy this book. I'm just like one of the people that don't enjoy it, but like majority does, so we definitely give it a shot. It's very interesting, but go for audiobook, because I think that way maybe you hate the characters a bit less. Just everyone's so self-destructive, and I really don't like that characteristic in characters. Like, being self-destructive is something that really like doesn't appeal to me and doesn't resonate with me, so it's always annoying. And these characters are very self-destructive, but this book really is there just for the character study. So Taylor Jenkins Reid, I need to read more of her books, because apparently it's all about the characters. Next up, we have like a really old favorite of mine, which is Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I think that's his name. So this book is quite an old one, and I've read it many years ago, and I've not reread it since. So, you know, take this with a grain of salt. But I did rewatch the movie, and it was still good. So in this book, we follow this young teenage boy who's just entering high school, I believe, and he's always been very withdrawn and had really hard time making friends. So he starts writing these letters. We don't really know who they're to, like God, friend, whoever it may be. He just starts writing letters explaining his feelings so that he can process the feelings better. It's a very heartbreaking story. I would put a content warning for pedophilia and sexual abuse. So if that's topic that you don't want to read about, I would warn you, because it's definitely not known from the beginning, so it could really sneak up on you. But if you're okay reading that kind of thing, or if you feel like you can handle it, it's not very explicit by any means, but it's just mentioned, then this is such a wonderful story. Just the first time I ever read it was it was so beautiful, heartbreaking, and just the friendships that the main character goes through. It's just all about his personal development and journey, and how he deals with life, and how he deals with having friends and growing up. It was beautiful. I love this book. I always say it's my favorite book of all time. I don't know if that's true. I would need to read it for that to be true, because it's been years and I've read many books since then, but I think it's wonderful. I love it. I think it's quite well recognized and appreciated, but I just thought I'd mention it. I have a bit of a extra for you, extra entry, because when I was talking, I just thought about another book that really resonated with me because of the character. This would be Wonder. Don't remember the author's name from the top of my head, but Wonder is a middle grade actually, and we follow, I think his name Augie or something, or August, something like that. He has some kind of disease, I can't remember, but because of the disease, he had to have a lot of operations and surgeries done. The surgery saved his life, but he doesn't have an appearance of normal boy, like his face is a little bit disfigured, and it's about him going to school, finding friends, growing up, and it's just such a wonderful story. I really love it. I don't know, I guess I didn't think about it for being character driven just because it's a middle grade, because a lot of middle grade contemporaries are about growing up, which I guess I associate with character growth, but this one, like, really beautiful. I would really recommend this. So cute. Next up we have Sword of Kaigen by ML Wong. Yes, I talk about this book about 99% of the time. If I make a video, this one will appear, but that's because it's my favorite read of 2021 so far, and I don't see it being like boosted from its pedestal, you know what I mean? So this one is Japanese inspired, fantasy, standalone, and in it we follow Misaki, who used to be a warrior, but now she got married and lives with her husband and her many sons on this island called Sword of Kaigen. It's a story about Misaki, it's a story about her son, it's a story about her whole family, and I don't know if it's like traditionally would be considered character driven, but I really think so, because the plot there, like, there's a lot of, like, there's plot, but the plot really is to like give the characters chance to grow, to push them, to challenge them, to make them break the status quo, and all of that just makes it such a good book. Like, this is just so good. I love this book so much. I need to reread it even though I read it this year. There's just something so magical about it, the way the characters interact with each other, the way they have so many complexities, layers. It's just real, honestly, it's like layer upon layer upon layer. They're Shrek. They have layers like onions, you know? Layers! And I love this book anyway, but the characters were just done so well, and this is really about their journey. Next up we have The Seep by Chana Porter. So this book is kind of a short story. It's a sci-fi. We follow Earth when it got basically overtaken by aliens. So this alien species called the Seep, and they don't have a corporal. They don't have a corporal form, but they can be basically ingested or like absorbed by humans, and they made it so that there's no war, there's no famine, there's no hardships in the world. It's literally just like everything is perfect. And we follow our main character who lived in the world before the Seep and now lives in the world with Seep, and she has a partner, and her wife decides that she wants to be reborn as a baby, because that's something you can do now, because she feels like the memories of her life before Seep are too painful, because she's gone through a lot of things and she wants to be reborn. And it's about the main character like dealing with that loss, and also just like dealing with a world that's perfect and finding her purpose. So like, yeah, it was a very interesting sci-fi world with super fascinating concept, like really interesting conundrums. Again, it was like all there to discuss the bigger things, and like you see the main character grow and change so much throughout the story. I really loved it. I think it was really well written. The audiobook was really good and just made me think a lot, and like really just like wonder about the purpose, the world, what would I do in that situation. It really helps. Like, I loved seeing this character go through her grief and her loss and her anger and her confusion, all of that, just go throughout the story and explore it. And it was really interesting book. I would really recommend, actually. It was very fascinating. So the next book is Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. So this book is a bit of a different one. I feel like, I don't know, the vibe's a bit different, but this one's basically a retelling of the Christmas Carol, and we follow our main character Holly Chase, who gets visited by her own ghosts of past, present and future, and they tell her that she needs to change her ways or she is gonna die. Basically, she doesn't listen because she's like, this is some balloony dream I had. And she dies, and she becomes like a real life, like she becomes one of the ghosts, because the Christmas Carol, like the ghosts or whatever, they're like a whole production, and every year they choose one person and they walk them through their life and do the whole Christmas carol shtick, and it's to change like one person a year. So this was really a story about growth and changing and growing up. We start with Holly Chase, who's like an awful person, really vain, really terrible to everyone, doesn't appreciate what she has, just like a spoiled Los Angeles baby, right? And she just grows so much throughout the story, and really the plot is there to serve her growth. Like, her growth is the whole point, you know. This is a Christmas carol. She's supposed to learn and grow from it, and I really, really like it. I think it was a very interesting spin on a classic, and actually made maybe a bit more sense because it took way more than just one night of some like ghost telling you what to do for the main character to change. I found it really fun, really heartwarming, really great Christmas read. So if that's something you might be looking for, or you're like wondering, oh, it's July, you know, what should I do for Christmas? And now you know, you should read Whole Afterlife of Holly Chase. It was so good. I really enjoyed it, and it was adorable. Okay, and the next one is Girls with Sharp Sticks by Suzanne Young. So this book is a sci-fi as well, and we follow this school for like proper young ladies where the girls are taught how to be perfect wives, and it's kind of like about our main character breaking out of this. Without spoiling anything, I just want to point out that this story really is about coming to your own, growing. The main character discovers a lot of things about herself, about the world, about her friends, about the school, about gender roles or whatever. All of that, she discovers a lot, and it's really like about her growing, coming to her own, and it's really like an ensemble cast as well. Okay, none of the other girls were identifiable, like all of them were a big mass of just other girls, but that mass of other girls were great friends, and I really liked seeing that female friendship aspect, even though the other female characters could do with some developing, because like I say, they were just big mass of others. The way the story set up just really lends itself to growing, and I need to read the second and third book. I just haven't gotten to it, but this one was really good, and the audiobook was good for it as well, so I would recommend. And I think it was a really good story, and I think it counts. Like, I'm not sure, but I think it counts. Okay, and the next book is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. So this book, we follow this young boy that gets visited by a monster at night, and this monster says that he will either like help him or like do something for him if he answers 3 questions or like tells 3 stories. I don't remember, it's been a while, but it's basically about this boy hanging out with this monster, and I love this book. This is a heartbreaking book, and it's all kind of like a metaphor, you know what I mean? Like, it's all about the main character who's a little boy coming to terms with something really difficult happening, and it was heartbreaking and sad and really, really, really well written. And I really want the illustrated version, because there's illustrated version with photos and everything. Well, not photos, but illustrations, whatever. Yeah, it was beautiful. It was heartbreaking, heartwarming to an extent, and it was really all about the main character's journey of accepting something difficult and coming to terms with it, and it was all a metaphor serving the growth of the character. So like, is there anything more character driven than that? I don't think so. So that's why I thought this one would suit very well. And the last book I wanted to recommend was Etta and Otto and Russell and James? I actually remember that. I don't remember the author though. So this book, I personally didn't love it, but I think this really fits well, and maybe if you like the kind of story, you will enjoy it. So in this book, we follow Etta, and I think she's married to Otto, and they're like an older couple, and Etta one day just kind of ups and leaves, and she wants to go to the ocean. So it's just her journey to the ocean, but she like walks there basically to the ocean, but she doesn't live by the ocean. And it's about Otto like being okay with her leaving, and like Russell's their friend and neighbor as well, so it's about him. It's like a very weird story. I did quite like it. I think I might have even cried. It's a very, very touching, heartwarming story, very different than I think I normally read, but it was all about the character's journey of coming to terms with their lives, with what they've been through, with how life may be ending. And I don't know if the characters changed through the story, so I know that's the point. Again, the plot was more like, I felt like a metaphor, you know, like you're not meant to think about it literally. There's a lot of like hallucinations and like that kind of thing, so it's not really meant to be taken at a face value. And I think for that reason, the plot is serving the characters moving forward. So I think it counts. I would kind of recommend it. I think it was pretty good, especially if it sounds like something you enjoy. Like, I don't think it sounds something like I'd enjoy. I just picked it up because I took it from a jar, because someone recommended it. But I did enjoy it in the end. I think, thinking about it now, I did enjoy it. Maybe didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. So if this is something you might enjoy, you're probably gonna really like it because it was very well done. Okay, those are all character-driven books I wanted to talk to you about. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. I don't know if this last list was any good, honestly. This is just something I don't notice in books. Is it character-driven? I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's slow, but like, I like it. So basically, this is the list of books of it's slow, nothing happened, but I like sitting here with these characters. I hope you enjoy it. If you want, please let me know what are your favorite character-driven books. I'd love to know, because clearly I need to expand my list and read a bit more, because it's something I enjoy when I notice it. I just don't usually notice it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you could like, comment, subscribe, it really helped me out. But that's it from me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!